mindsets. Learn how to go beyond your limiting beliefs and maximize your individual strengths to unlock your true potential to thrive. Are you ready to go beyond, to live your best life now? Contact me, ReadySetGoBeyond.com or 305-753-6758.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. I'm Marcia Teele, your host. This show is actually running 4 years, so I am glad that you found us and that you are with us today because we have another wonderful show for you. You can either listen to us on Southeast Florida Radio, or you can actually watch us live stream on your smartphone or your computer at www.caregiversolutions.info. This show is for caregivers. Caregivers are special people, and caregivers weren't trained to be a caregiver. Usually they are just thrown into that role. And so, like all of us, people need help, especially caregivers, because being a caregiver is something totally probably unnatural to a lot of people. Some people have never had to be responsible for anyone in their entire lives until a family member, a friend, a spouse becomes ill, gets some form of dementia, and needs our help. So this show is for you, the family caregiver, to help you to understand the ins and outs, the do's, the don'ts, the wills, the won'ts, and everything in between from professionals. And today I have one of those professionals with me right here in the studio. We are live from Boca Raton, Florida, and I'm very excited to have her here with me today. I've known her for probably 15 years or more, and her name is Sherry Issa, and she is from Thera Council. Welcome, Sherry.
Hello, and thank you. It's exciting to be here. I've watched some of the shows, and you're doing some really good work. And it's all too often we look at the patient and not at the caregivers. And I'm finding there's a lot of information out there, and you're doing a great job. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you've checked us out and refer some of your clients to us. The show is actually watched by quite a few healthcare professionals, and they've told me that it has helped them. And then they've passed on the information and how to get in to the details of the show to their clients, to their patients, to family members. So we're growing. I think it's a grassroots effort, growing, and we reach a lot of people anywhere in the United States, even in Hawaii. We've heard from people.
Wow. Oh,
so
that's great.
I appreciate that compliment. We're going to continue to try our best to get information out to the public to help, because, there's never enough information. And I think the more information people have, the more information that we can give about dementia, Alzheimer's, the different types of dementia, about caring for someone with dementia, about, all the legal ramifications, the social ramifications, the financial ramifications, and of course the emotional ramifications. And that's where you come in today, Sherry, with the emotional ramifications of someone being a caregiver. So you're actually a psychotherapist, correct?
Yes, I'm a psychotherapist. I have my license is in clinical social work. So my bachelor's is in sociology, and then I'm a licensed clinical social worker, which requires a 2-year internship, and then you take some tests, and you become a licensed psychotherapist, and then you can get on with different insurance panels to be reimbursed by the insurance companies.
Wonderful. So where did you go to school?
First I went to BYU in Ricks, and then I graduated with my master's at Colorado State University. So not a big fancy university, but definitely learned a lot of really good things, and still I'm learning quite a bit. So from the researchers are out there, talking about caregiver distress, because it's a big issue.
Yeah, it is big. And I think that we learn everything every day. I mean, I've been in the field of Alzheimer's and dementia for almost 20 years. And most times I don't hear anything that I haven't heard before, but you still learn about things that perhaps are really different, and things that come up that are new. And so we always need to continue to be educated. And that's why I love this program, because we can bring to the caregivers, to the healthcare professionals that are listening, up-to-date information, real-life stories, actually things to help them, and solutions. And that's why we call the show Caregiver Solutions, because we do help solve some of those problems that caregivers face every single day. Your name is Thera Counsel, the name of your company.
Yes, yes.
And as the name suggests, Thera, therapy, counsel, counseling. So you help a lot of people too.
We are so fortunate. We opened in 1997. I was a solo practitioner. I had been working for a couple years in a couple hospitals, and I had come from Colorado, where psychotherapists, LCSWs, were part of the multidisciplinary team. So when I came here to Florida, my colleagues and the doctors would listen as I would say, wait, they're getting this world-class care. They're in a wonderful place like Arden Courts. But what about talking with them individually, like they do in Colorado, helping them to be brave and talk about some of their fears to help them get through that. So I found, because of the lack of psychotherapists, myself and a couple clinicians got together, and I just hired one at a time. And now there's 20 psychotherapists.
Wow.
They're all LCSWs. One's a psychiatric ARNP. And when I mostly started getting to know Arden Courts, I was doing a support group for one of those outpatient rehabilitations. And there were 3 caregivers there. And we didn't have any magic wands, but we did have words. And we did have empathy. So we were able to talk with them, and they were able to say, wow, now that I have this care at Arden Court, what about
me?
How do I?
Yeah.
What about me? Does it matter? Is important? So they just were kind of lost with mom's vulnerabilities were taken care of, no matter what it was. If there was a possible hurricane, mom had a generator. If there was a social issue, everything was taken care of for them. And they were kind of learning trying to identify who they were together as a group. One had a grandmother, and then 2 had their spouses in the facility.
Okay. So they came together looking for help for themselves. And I'm really glad that they did that they showed up at a support group, because we find many times, even though we urge caregivers to go to support groups, it's not always easy for them, right? They, I know, I should, but sometimes they don't. And I wonder if you have an insight onto possibly why a caregiver would not jump at the chance to go to a support group. Have you had some issues with that and talking with some family members?
The barriers alphabetically are major first. I mean, it's from the stigma, it's time, it's the armor we wear of I'm too busy. So there's a lot of barriers
I don't
in
need
place.
it.
I don't need it. I don't want to talk about it. You're putting salt on an open wound. And and so there's that's one of many reasons. But in this situation, their loved one was getting physical therapy, so they were there anyways. So the owner said, "Look, while you're here, sit around and talk." And again, the first thoughts were, I don't want to talk negatively about my loved one. I don't want to say, that I'm having a problem with this. I want to be the rugged American that handles, individually can handle all. We were not. None of us were meant to handle this alone.
Yeah, well, it's hard to be vulnerable.
That
And that's what you have to be, is vulnerable, and that's not always an easy thing to do.
It is very hard, and you have to be brave, but the rewards are better than the fear going into it. And that's the thing. I'm being here today was a courageous move, but when I walk out, I'm going to be better for it. So, yeah, I think that's true.
Well, you don't have to be afraid, because you are such a professional, and I've known you many, many years, and referred to your company many times throughout the years, and you continue to do what you do all of these years. So I know you have the care, the compassion, the empathy, the sympathy, and everything that you touch. I know it's genuine. So, this is just a way for you to really highlight you and others who do what you do, because I think it's important for everyone to know there is help out there. And so thank you again for being here. I'm very excited. And we are going to take a quick first commercial break, and we come back. Sherry's going to be talking about how she helps those caregivers in those difficult situations through her counseling at TheraCounsel. So we'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help, because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. My guest today is Sherry Issa. She is a social worker and psychotherapist with TheraCounsel, and she's been helping caregivers and family members for many, many years, since 1999, I think you said.
I was working just by myself in 97, but we opened and started to expand in 99.
And you're all in South Florida, is that correct?
Mostly Broward, but some in Palm Beach.
Okay, great. Well, that's how I know you, because in Palm Beach, we met many years ago. And I want to talk about those caregivers that you help, because you help a lot of people, and you help people deal with a lot of different issues. But that includes caregivers that are dealing with issues related to dementia, whether it's a spouse or a parent, and you've been in that field for a long time dealing with them. How did you first get that experience in the dementia field? Because it's a specialized field. How did you first put your toes in the water with that?
The dementia, I was working in a small group home with about 6 seniors that all of them had dementia. So I had read about Naomi Field, F-E-I-L, and some of her work, and she emphasized empathy and how to understand what they're saying for a reason, what they're doing for a reason. They have an unmet need. And it's up to us to kind of play detective. And I was, they're the care recipient, and I'm the one who's making the mistakes because they'll say, well, my mom, she's waiting for me. I need to go home and see and I would say, well, your mom, she's passed. Remember that and I learned the hard way. That's not what. So I learned.
So it was trial by error.
It was, even though I knew what Naomi Field was saying, and that validate what they're saying. Ask, say, tell me about your mother. If they're saying to me, I lost my purse, instead of me going and finding it for them, and then they say, see, you stole my. I learned by doing it the wrong way and by starting to feel overwhelmed. And then I learned to be good to myself and forgive myself because fortunately they don't remember a lot of that anyways. But I kind of learned through trial and error. There's a lot of issues that are difficult and you don't always have the right answer. But as long as the person feels heard and validated, then you are making progress. They have cortisone levels in their brain for the next 24 hours. So I would have a lady that was going through the newspapers and she was really upset. But she can't read the newspapers. What? Maybe let's take them away. Well, it turned out in the end, it was better to give her the newspaper, even if it was upside down. She needed to feel productive and she needed to go through each section. And that made her feel like she was heard. I saw what she needed.
She was doing something that probably she'd done most of her life.
Right.
Even though she couldn't really, well, she might have been able to read the words, but probably didn't understand the words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And so I think a lot of times it's this guessing game. I had one lady, she was, she was not sleeping well. We all know about sundowners. If you've read the 36-hour day, you've read this stuff. But when it happens, it's also unique and individualized.
Yes.
So this lady was, her son was a psychiatrist. He was on the computer. He would listen to the sessions. He couldn't figure it out. Well, outside of the room, on the door, her name was spelled. Now, she had a tattoo, meaning she was in the concentration camp. Okay? So she saw the name on the door and was trying to tell me something about that name. And I was like, yes, you moved in, you have your name. And finally, I figured out it was spelled the way it was spelled when she was in the Holocaust. It was spelled incorrect.
No.
So just getting into their world, we fixed that by changing the spelling of her name. So often it's not what it appears. And you have to play detective. And
oh my gosh, that was something because she probably was very fearful and was putting herself back. And, because they do have their long-term memory.
That's right.
That stays longer than the short-term memory,
Yes.
which goes first.
Right.
And so she's putting herself back in those times and getting scared and wondering what's going on. And, oh, my goodness, that's a story.
she was having trauma all over again.
Yes.
Just like the lady that I said, your mom passed, when I was new. They don't need trauma. They need us to understand, support, reassure. But sometimes you connect with them and you figure it out, and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
I used to have a lady that would jump the fence. I don't know how she jumped. She has a cane. She's like this little. She would jump the fence in the back, go for her walk, and she was going to tell her dad where she was. Well, once I realized she needed to tell her dad where she was, we were able to say, she'd say, my dad's looking for me.
Right.
And I could say, you're concerned about your dad. Tell me about your dad. And, not ever lie to him, not deceive them, but talk to me about your dad. Validation worked every time.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about this validation therapy. I mean, we use it a lot at Art and Courts, of course, but a lot of people don't know about that. And you learned that, of course, through not only your experience, but working with Naomi. And if you want to talk a little bit about her, she was a pioneer in this.
Yes,
so
yes.
talk a little bit about that validation therapy and how you learned from her.
She is the best of the best. She believes that every behavior has a reason, okay? And she also believes in the value of kind of like empathy, something that's been expanded by Brene Brown and Helen Reese. And so she just really believed in trying to get into their world. Like with her, when I would go in to see a client who maybe no longer spoke. I would be with her. I would hum along, trying to connect, trying to connect, because she would teach us we need to connect with them. They need to be seen.
In some way or fashion.
In some way. They need to be seen, to know they're seen. So we would hum. And so she would hum to You Are My Sunshine. Once that relationship, that connection was made, she felt validated. She felt heard. And, I mean, the family just thought it was amazing. She was singing every chance she got. And so that was just kind of one of the ways I was able to reach her. In the nursing home, they would give us a list of all of their history.
Okay.
And so if they were a religious person, you would him religious. They don't forget the religion as much as the short-term memories. She could not speak, but she could sing.
And she actually sang the words out loud?
Actually sang
she
the
went
words
from
out
humming
loud.
to singing.
Yes.
Wow. What a success.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And I'm sure it blew the family away, not hearing her voice for a long time, and all of a sudden now she's singing out loud.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes.
So this validation therapy means, go along with them, right? Don't argue with them. A lot of caregivers have issues with that because they say, but she's not right. And they have this determination to correct the person with dementia because they're not right. So in other words, if their mom might say, oh, that's a pretty flower, and the daughter says, yeah, it is. What color is it? And the mom might say, it's green. Well, the daughter's going to say, well, no, Mom, it's actually red. And now they're going to have an argument about it, right? Because the mother, in her mind, thinks it's green. And so this just causes a lot of rift between people. It can cause an argument, can cause hurt feelings. So how do caregivers get over that hump, I guess, to call it, of just saying, yeah, Mom, you're right, it is green, and what a pretty shade of green it is. Because maybe what you said before, the benefits outweigh, the being stubborn maybe about it. But how do they get to that point? How do you get them to get to that point?
I think we have an innate desire to be right, and to overcome that and to say, what is more important, being close or being right? My right is not necessarily their right. And what they perceive as their world, they have a right to perceive. So I know at Arden Courts, one of the family members said that he was asking, well, where's my car? Where's my car? And she said, well, what color is your car? Not arguing, not saying, you don't have a car anymore. It's okay, though. But going with it, what color is your car? Are you feeling, and trying to figure out, had to have a need to feel safe, secure, freedom? What is it?
So there's a reason why the man was asking specifically about that car. And by asking more questions, it sounds like not only are you making him heard, which is what you said is very important to do, but also it's getting his mind maybe off the treadmill, right?
Yes.
Of saying it over and over again, where's my car, where's my car? And they get fixated on something. And by talking about it, that sort of deflects and distracts him a little bit from getting upset about where his car is.
And it made the job for the aides so much easier. Because they were trained, it didn't escalate. But it could have easily escalated with someone who has good intentions to just say, you're not driving anymore. But in that case, again, going with their reality, they had a car. Tell me what color your car is. Where should we look? Or whether it's the purse. Not finding it yourself, but what color is it? Let's look for it together. I hear you. I see. They're needing something from you, that connection. We all need that connection. We need that relationship with others and with ourselves. So it was kind of tapping into that connection.
So if someone is a caregiver and they're at home with their spouse, and the spouse is, let's say it's a man, and he's mild-mannered normally, right, and easy to get along with, but all of a sudden, out of the blue, he's agitated and maybe even a little bit aggressive, right? You're saying you got to find out the reason for it, because there is a reason. I think if we think about if we've ever had children, right? And we have babies, and babies cry. Well, there's a reason babies cry, right? They're either wet, they're hungry, or they want to be held. I mean, pretty much that's it, right? I
Yes.
mean, when I
Yes.
was babysitting my newborn grandson this past year, and I was the first grandparent to be watching him while my daughter-in-law first went back to work. And the baby, of course, slept a lot. And when the baby wasn't sleeping, you had to entertain them. But the baby would sometimes still cry. And you have to figure out, what is it? The baby could have been, like I said, wet or hungry. But if that wasn't the case, you check and you try to feed, the bottle. But sometimes it's either a lack of stimulation or overstimulation.
Exactly.
And could that not be true in many ways for an adult that has dementia?
Which is why in your buildings, they researched Arden Court 5 years before they opened it. But there's a reason that it is built the way it's built. When they're overstimulated, they can't understand their environment, and they get anxious. If they have to use the restroom and they don't know where the restroom is, they start pacing. But the way it's built is built so they can wander or walk around and do something. They can also fold towels, feel productive, fold and refold. So yes, the needs. There's pain in life no matter what. We're born into pain. We're born, we come out of a safe place, the womb, and the lights are bright, they hurt our eyes. The sound is loud, it hurts our ears. But if we can figure out what we're doing to cause less intentional pain, the better off we are. So I think with caregivers, it's so important to accept they don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Bringing in other family members, bringing in informal support systems, not trying to be the detective to understand each episode of pain, because pain, we can't necessarily take it away, but we can show them we're not afraid.
And we understand,
we're here to
and we're
listen.
here for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And life, and whatever it is you're going through, it is hard.
Yeah.
We're going to be here through that.
Right. And you got to relay that in whichever way you can. So the wife who has this particular husband, try a hug, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Try a sandwich. Try to take him and guide him to the bathroom. Try to find out what it is that is making him anxious and upset. And then, if you do, then you have a little bit more data for the next time.
And just that holding their hand may have addressed the need enough. I mean, sure, if they still need to go to the bathroom, fine. But holding strangers' hands seems weird, but it's not. We have a connection, a human connection between all of us. And if we embrace it and we hold a stranger's hand, that could be most of what they need. Sounds weird, works.
Yeah, human touch is really does miracles, right?
And Naomi Field talked a lot about that. She would say, touch their face, make sure that, and if they cry, touch the tears. And we all, even if a person is no longer speaking and they're doing these repetitive motions, they need to be touched as much as they need water and food.
Yeah, I'm a big hugger, so I totally believe in that. Thank you so much. We're going to go to commercial break, but we will be back with more from Sherry from Thera Council, so stay with us.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back. At this time, I'd like to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Communities. Arden Courts is a leader in memory care for people suffering from pretty much any kind of memory loss. And they are located, actually 10 locations here in Florida and close to 50 across the United States. And Arden Courts is there not just for the person that is suffering from the memory loss, but also for the family and for their caregivers. And as such, they like to provide resources to help not only this show, but they're giving away this book. It's called the 36-Hour Day Book. My guest, Sherry, here from TheraCounsel, mentioned it briefly in the first part of our show about the 36-hour day. So now you know what it is. It's a resource. It's a great book written by Dr. Peter Rabins and Nancy Mace. And this book is invaluable to caregivers, to help caregivers understand what they're going through. It has a lot of good information, tips and suggestions and explanations and definitions. And Arden Courts would like to give this book to you absolutely free, just for the asking. All you have to do is call into their toll-free number. That number is 888-478-2410. Again, call Arden Courts at 888-478-2410. Tell them that you heard about the 36-hour day book offer on the Caregiver Solutions Info Show, and they will get your name and address and make sure to mail a book directly to you. So call them today. Don't wait. Get the book. It's an awesome resource, and you'll be glad that you did. So my guest is Sherry from TheraCounsel. Sherry Issa is a psychotherapist, social worker, wonderful person, and she has been helping caregivers deal with issues related to dementia and helping lots of other people with other issues. But she's here today to talk about the things that caregivers need to know when they're being a caregiver and going through those hard times, whether their spouse is still at home, or maybe they've had to place them in a assisted living for memory loss, or maybe even they might even be in a nursing home. It doesn't matter, because the caregiver, has to really go that journey with that person, right? I mean, it's a very long journey. I.e. the 36-hour day, there's a lot more than 24 hours in a day that caregivers try to put, because it's such an overwhelming job. But caregivers need to know a couple things about counseling. Number one, talk about how it's available to them, how can they get it, how is it paid for, and then what kind of things would a caregiver benefit from by going to counseling? Big question, but I know you can handle it.
I'll give it. Are you having the author come and speak from the 36-hour
I
caregiver?
actually am.
Oh, I'm so excited. I figured you would. That book's old, but it's still just as relevant.
This book, The 36-Hour Day, is in its 5th edition, actually. And so it keeps being updated. And Dr. Peter Rabins came to South Florida about a month or two ago, and he spoke at a seminar.
That's what I understood.
And I spoke to him, and he's just retired, but he still goes and educates caregivers because he's phenomenal. And he actually is going to be a guest on this show in the next week or so. So thank you for bringing that up. I didn't know anybody knew yet.
I was at Florida Assisted Living Association. I was doing a presentation, and a lady was talking with me, Julie, and she's working at the hospital. And I was telling her that, you guys give away this book. And I said, I think he's going to be on the show. Some people still don't even know about this book, but it's the Bible for... It is. I know when I was working 24-hour shifts as a caregiver with the clients, I felt like it was a 36-hour day. I was in school, putting myself through school. I thought they sleep at night. I mean, maybe sometimes they anyways, so I could relate to a lot in there. And I feel like in a way I am a caregiver, because we are psychotherapists. There's 20 psychotherapists. And in a way we are a caregiver. In a way we feel some of that feeling of overwhelmed, low self-esteem. How did I make it worse? Am I being selfish by taking care of myself, which is paradoxical? The better you take, if you take care of them to the exclusion of yourself, they're going to even resent you. You have to take care of you can't even love someone more than you love yourself. So I think going into therapy before there's signs of sleep problems, guilt, energy, getting in there and building on your positives, taking that risk, being courage, talking about your vulnerabilities prevents the development of disorders. And the insurance companies often say it must be medically necessary. Well, if a person has had a change or a relocation, that qualifies for medically necessary.
So if someone wants to come see you and talk about some of their worries and concerns about being a caregiver, let's say that because of their caregiving, they had a spike in blood pressure, would that be considered a medical change?
When there's been a transition, a new diagnosis, that's enough. So when you move into an assisted living community, that's a major adjustment. That's enough. You don't need to wait till you're not sleeping. Although caregivers are not sleeping well anyways. I read on the Central Disease Control, if you don't sleep for 7 hours twice, you are sleep deprived. What caregiver's not then, if that's the definition? So I think we just go through life not realizing that we're not taking care of ourselves. It never hurts to take your insurance card, call the number on the back, get an evaluation. We have all these tools. You answer the questions, and it'll show you where you could benefit from more support. So
in other words, a caregiver, if they're not sure, they can call you and you can help to see if they qualify. Is that what you're saying?
they do qualify if they're caring for somebody because they have had a change. So they can call their insurance and say, I would like a psychotherapist. Now, the way traditional Medicare works, every time the therapist sees them, they're paid a flat fee. If you're on a Part C or a managed care plan, the federal government, CMS, gives that private insurance a certain amount of money. Okay, so say it's $1,600. So now that insurance, let's say it's Humana, Care Plus, has to manage your care. So they have an incentive to not treat. So they might say, well, you can go to an office. And then you can say, well, their office is far away. You kind of have to argue with them. But if you call in and you ask for it, even if they say no, it's not going to be covered, if you argue, 40% of the time they'll change their mind. Again, medical necessity is the criteria. If you say you went through a life change, that is a diagnosis.
And if they say no, just like anything else, that if you feel that it's your right or you don't want to take no for an answer, ask for a supervisor, right? I mean, go up the chain.
Absolutely. This is the number one thing. We have a lot of denials. We go to the seniors in the assisted livings, or we have the clients in the office. If those clients, we do get a lot of denials because the insurance companies have an incentive to not treat. 40% of the time, the family calls, it's reversed, okay? There's never been a situation where CMS has gone in and looked at the denials, but I think that's probably down the road. In the meantime, the best we can do is call in and say, I want to see a psychotherapist.
And that's a shame that caregivers have enough stress in their life dealing with what they're dealing and then have to deal with insurance, right?
Absolutely. I think there should be billboards. I think it should be on television. People know about us because of word of mouth. We didn't create a brochure until about 6 months ago. So take your insurance card, turn it over and say, who's my psychotherapist? Call 1-800-MEDICARE and ask for a psychotherapist. They're there. It's just not advertised.
And this is nationally, anywhere,
Nationally,
right?
anywhere, yes. And if you're a provider, most providers like us, the important thing is getting them in. They already have stigma. They don't want to go in. Getting them in is more important. We know some of them are going to be denied, but it just gives us fuel to remember to argue with those companies. More important to come in and risk it not getting paid, because with their counsel, we accept whatever they pay or don't pay. The important thing is go in.
Yeah,
You won't be
so
sorry.
Don't let that be a barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't
Yeah.
wait too long.
And don't wait too
And
long.
what happens if someone waits until they're in a crisis?
Which they usually do. And by that time, we need to order medications so that they can even sit through a therapy session because they're now overwhelmed.
So you work with their primary care physician, or can you do that in-house?
We have an outpatient office, and we also go to the senior living communities.
Okay.
So if they have a loved one in the facility, we like to meet them at the facility. So we have an office, or we can go to the facility.
Yeah. So when someone waits for a crisis and you're saying, okay, that makes it worse because now they have to have medication, but what other ramifications are there to waiting too long? Are they just so stressed out that they're going to get physically sick?
That's the problem. We wait too often. I mean, right now, studies show 60% of caregivers are distressed or very distressed. That is enough to go in and get help. We can help you if you're doing well to continue doing well, to create a treatment plan that shows you what are you doing well, in what areas, and why, so that you can do more of that.
And that's important because people say, well, I don't need it, things are
Right,
fine.
right.
But if they're dealing with being a caregiver for someone that has Alzheimer's, and we all know that Alzheimer's is a progressive disease, which means it's going to get worse. Not if, but when.
That's right.
It is going to get worse, which means your caregiver is going to face worse issues, harder issues, right? So things aren't going to stay status quo.
Right.
And so if they're doing well now, I like what you said, find out how to stay that way even as the job gets harder. Yeah.
What is working? Oh, it works to have your one family member is paying to have the lawn cut. One family, and you need to bring them in before you need them. So you want to bring them in, have someone maybe in charge of paying for the yard work, someone just sitting with mom and dad for 2 hours. It takes courage. You have to be vulnerable. You have to look weak, but the paradox is you're strong. You have courage if you're doing this. So it's very paradoxical. The more you ask for help, the more others want to help you.
That's amazing. That's really good advice. Well, we have to stop for just a minute for our last commercial break, but stay with us. We'll be back with more great advice from Sherry from Thera Council. We'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
I'm back, and my special guest today is Sherry, and she is from Thera Council. We've been talking about how therapy and counseling can help caregivers. And Sherry, thank you for being here today again, because you are so educated and so experienced and so passionate about what you do. I'm curious, how did you know that you wanted to do this? Was it just something that maybe was in your family, or did you have an experience? Because it's not an easy job.
I think all those of you out there who are only children or first daughters, there's kind of this sense of you're responsible for the rest of the family members, especially in a case like ours where there's 6 kids, there's 8 in the family, 2 bathrooms. So you need somebody who's going to be kind of like a caregiver. They called me bossy, but I was assertive.
That's funny because I'm the oldest girl too.
Are you?
So I can identify with that.
So whether they sent me that message or whether I received it, I felt it was my job to make sure they belonged. And in our family, we had my older brother who was Caucasian. He was adopted. Myself, I was Caucasian, adopted. My Indian sister, Indian, Native American, dark, adopted. Then my brother, who came along 11 years later, who was Caucasian. And then my sister, who was half black, half Korean. And then my Korean brother. So I had to see the world from all different points of views and know that they're all valid because their perspective is their view. So I always had this sense of social justice and trying to understand how to make sure everyone signed up for the bathroom and didn't use it too long. I mean, that was a big part of it. The boys, do they have a right to do they get 15 minutes, right? It's good. Anyways.
2-second showers.
2 second, yeah. The girls get a lot. So I thought, I'm going to go in and fix things. I'm going to make it right. Then when I got to graduate school, I quickly learned that it's not about making it right. It's about letting them come up with their solutions. And I learned that we're all, if there's a family, and you have one person who's having an issue, it affects us all. We're all connected. And in this world, it's the same thing. If you have someone in your family that goes through a trauma and is harmed, and then another family, maybe 2 brothers go to war, maybe another family member goes through the housing crisis or the economic downturn, and we are all affected. I would argue that those 9/11 was a trauma for all of us, and we are a big family. And then there was wars after 9/11. So I think that, and then there was a financial downturn if our loved ones lost their houses. So even from a young age, I felt like we're all connected. We all need to work together. We need to come together, ask for help, be vulnerable, because the risk is worth it. So I think, some of that inspired my passion.
Yeah, to help others.
Yes.
And help others connect.
And connect.
And to fix things.
Well,
Or help them
I'm
to
not
see
the
how to
fixer.
fix it.
Yeah, I'm not the fixer. But yes, asking them the questions.
Because
so
people will come up with the right answer if you help them get to that point, right? So you're not going to fix them, but you're going to help them fix themselves and help them come to, I guess, a realization of really what is their source of the root that's causing them to feel the way they feel, right?
And if nothing changes, how do we make sure they're okay?
Yeah.
Because some things we can't change. We do cause pain. We can cause less pain once we start acknowledging that, but sometimes the answer is acceptance. And if they talk through that, they come to that realization.
So I would imagine that with your clients who are caregivers, you talk a lot about the A word, not necessarily Alzheimer's, but the other A word, anger.
Oh, sure.
Right? And the G word, guilt.
Oh, sure.
Right? And so I'm sure those are probably really big topics. What other topics do caregivers bring to you that wouldn't be considered automatic?
Well, I think that you really hit on, shame, vulnerability, courage. These, in the past, we couldn't really define those. Now we have Brene Brown, and she's defining it. And there was another one, Helen Rice. She's studying their mirror neurons. So if someone's pricked by a pin and someone else is watching, we now know, we feel, our brains have the same activity. So, yeah.
In other words, someone's watching that, they're going to feel like they're being pricked? Is that what you're saying?
Not to the same extent,
right.
But absolutely.
Oh, no, I can totally identify with that. I mean, if someone slams their finger in a door,
that's
a car
right.
door, don't you just go, ugh?
Exactly.
And it gets me in my gut. It hurts. It hurts me, of course, like you said, not as much as it hurts them, but we do feel that.
We are connected as humans more than we ever realized. If you go to pick up a cup of hot tea, I'm going to feel differently, and my brain neurons are going to respond differently as I'm encoding whether you're going to drink that tea or you're going to put it in the sink. But we're connected. And so I think now with the research, we're understanding, right now we're too divided, philosophically, politically, and kind of pointing the fingers and comparing. When you give that up and you realize you hold the stranger's hand, you'll find we are all connected at a spiritual level. I don't know, what your beliefs out there are about a God, but we are absolutely connected as humans. And it's paradoxical because it takes strength to get to know other people and to share yourself and to be vulnerable. But that is absolutely what you need.
And to be open. To help others and to get help.
Yes.
So this has been so wonderful having you here. And if somebody is listening and they would like to talk to you on a personal basis or call you for more information, can they do that?
Absolutely. Yes, I can give you the phone number. We have an office. But either way, whether it's us or whether it's somebody else, it's very important. Even if you don't need the services now, just call that number and say, what if I do want to talk with someone? Because every time you call, you help 10 people who are too afraid to call.
Aw. And that number, you can actually see it if you're watching on our screen, is 954-716-6514. Again, Sherry at 954-716-6514. 514. Sherry Issa with Thera Council. She has 20 people working with her and for her, and I know in my heart they're as wonderful as you because you wouldn't have it any other way.
I hired, because we do the billing, coding, administrative work, but we hired, the president of they're the cream of the crop. But the important thing is, others are cream of the crop too. Call your insurance. Let them know you're interested.
Okay.
And if you get a denial, call them and tell them, no, this is a needed service.
Yes.
Okay?
That's the important part.
Yeah.
And they still say no, call and just, do whatever you have to do to get help. I know some caregivers even do private pay just because they don't have the insurance. Maybe they're not from this country and they don't have Medicare, and they're still a caregiver, let's say from Germany, and they don't have that service. But they will private pay because they know how important it is.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't care if you have $2 or $5. Don't let that be the reason for not coming in.
Yeah. Thank you, Sherry, so
You're
much.
welcome.
I'm so happy you're here. And thank you for joining us. Don't forget to call in for your free 36-hour day book to Arden Courts at 888-478-2410. Join us next time, same place, same time, for another show of the Caregiver Solutions info. And don't forget, give somebody a hug because they need it, and so do you. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.